Hello everybody, Jake, your resident content cowboy here, yeehaw, and with the new season here essentially and draft mode coming to Pokemon Unite, I wanted to make a tier list based on drafting some of the Pokemon inside the game. I've also got a video coming about drafting the game, but I actually want to play it in the ranked mode just to see what is different. The current system we have seems to be a little... well, it's bad for what's going on in ranked, but they're changing it. You're having multiple bans now, and the fourth and fifth player inside the screen will end up banning the Pokemon back and forth. So I'm interested to see what that looks like before I start talking too much about how to use the ban system in Unite. I want to actually play it for myself a little bit, but today I want to do this tier list because it's Monday. On Mondays, we do tier lists, and on Wednesdays, we wear pink.
I'd rather be than be with you. I'd rather be me. I'd rather be me. I'd rather be me than be with you.
So what we're talking about in today's tier list are all of the Pokemon that get better or worse value because of draft mode inside the game. And I'm so excited to see this come to Pokemon Unite, especially if they continue to expand this into the ranked mode inside the game, because it's going to change a lot of Pokemon's value, and you're going to see a lot of different Pokemon inside the game because of this. So let's start looking at all of our Pokemon inside the game. This tier list will be up to date to Miraidon. I have not played Miraidon inside the full game yet, but I have a very good idea of what Miraidon will be like. If I'm wrong, sue me, but I can tell you, you would never win in a court of law because I'm pretty sure this is an airtight case. Let's take a look at our tiers for this week. We have our God tier bans. These are Pokemon that are so incredibly good, you will probably see them banned out just about every game inside of draft mode. You could look at this as high S tier choices that also have high ban priority. We have our high bans for a living. This is based on a Panic at the Disco song, and also these are all really strong Pokemon that could very well be banned inside of a lot of games. We have our B tier. Yeah, even draft mode won't save us from the B tier. Still got the B tier. Ugh. We have our won't see many bans mid-value tier. This is like okay. So for our B tier here, I'm looking at Pokemon that will every once in a while get banned. Probably not a lot, but they're also pretty good. So this is actually a really exciting tier because these Pokemon are solid and you won't have to worry too much about whether you can get them or not. We have this tier. This is kind of like our C tier here. We won't see many bans and they're okay value. You'll probably be able to pick these Pokemon in any game, but they're also not superstars. We have our Decidueye Memorial tier. No bans, low value. These Pokemon will never be banned unless they're troll bans, and they also don't provide a ton of value to the game right now. And then we have our sneaky high value tier that we'll get to when we have a few Pokemon inside the game that in our current mode are maybe fine or maybe pretty good, but in draft are sneaky crazy good. So that's what we're gonna look at for today's tier list right here. Let's get right into it. Let's start with a big one. Umbreon. Umbreon will be in our high bans for a living tier. We might even move it into our God tier. One of the best defenders in the game. Hard to counter. This is either a top ban or in one of these two categories. I'm not sure how many God tier Pokemon I'm gonna have. Maybe I'll put multiples. If I do, Umbreon definitely is a God tier ban choice. Again, crazy good defender, and it also shuts down so many options on the opposing team. Like they can't run Wiggly. It's hard for them to run a lot of defenders that give massive shields. They can't really run buddy barriers. Like Umbreon is just massive value. So it's a high ban choice and it's such a powerful Pokemon. Let's take a look. Let's just bounce around. You know what? Let's do some of our defenders. Blastoise right up there. It's not as good as Umbreon as a pure defender sometimes, even though Surf Pump Blastoise is really good. It's just so good in lane, and it's so good at every stage of the game, especially with its earlier evolution now, with a massively powerful Unite move. You're going to get a lot of value out of Blastoise, and you could see some people banning Blastoise. Trevenant. Trevenant is going to hang out in our really good tier, but you're unlikely to see it banned. Maybe if they buff Trevenant or something like that, you could see this slightly change. I think Trev's amazing, but I don't think people are going to be banning it out. It's a really, really great pick. One of the top defender picks. Crustle is in the same boat. Very unlikely that you'll see teams banning out Crustle, but it's really, really good. However, with 4 bans, you might expand what you're expecting for bans a little bit. There could be some Pokemon that you're seeing in our B tier right here that are actually going to do pretty well. And in general, I guess I think I have to keep this the way it is because this tier is about Pokemon that get banned a lot. And I don't think Crustle or Trev are going to get banned a lot, but they are really good Pokemon. Lapras, I don't think you're going to see many bans, and I think its value is pretty mid right now. It operates as an all-rounder. I think it's good. And when I say operates as an all-rounder, it's just that as a defender, it doesn't provide as much crowd control as some of the other options out there, and also it's gotten nerfed kind of multiple times over. I don't think anyone's going to be banning Lapras, which is kind of cool, so you might pick it up, and it's going to have some alright value. I don't think it's bad. Same thing for Snorlax, won't see many bans, decent value as a tank. Same thing for Mamoswine, won't see many bans, and it's got pretty good value. In general, defenders are really good, and you're not going to see too many of them banned outside of Umbreon and Blastoise, I don't think. Let's pull a few more up here, and I'll start talking about them here in 1 second. Great. So we've got Greedent. Greedent is no bans, low value. Greedent's value is really low right now, and it does not slot into many teams. It's one of the worst positioned Pokemons in the game. Did I just say Pokemons? All right. Let's take ourselves a drink. It's one of the worst positioned Pokemons, got it, in the game. And I also think in draft, it just has almost no place to go. It's such a weird Pokemon. Slowbro, on the other hand, this could see some bans if people start getting aggressive against defenders. I think it's closer to our top of our B tier. This is it's borderline. It depends on what people are looking to ban more. I'm gonna say it's still in our B tier right here. Great value, and unlikely to see it banned. However, you could. Goodra is fine. Goodra hangs out kind of here in our won't see many bans mid-value tier. Not bad, not amazing, but pretty good. Let's see. Those are all of our defenders right here. So again, for our defenders, for people who are just kind of getting used to draft right now, you're going to see a lot of Umbreons at its current power level. Could get nerfed. You're going to see a lot of Blastoises. And I think the B tier right here are Slowbro, Trevenant, Crustle. I think these are huge picks. But in general, even if you ban out all of these top defenders, everything here in our next tier below, which we'll just call our C tier because I'm keep talking about it anyway, everything here in our C tier is very, very valid as a defender choice. And then Greedent, unfortunately, just really doesn't have a great spot inside the game. Let's talk about some of our, you know what? Since we have Miraidon coming to the game, how about we talk about our attackers for a little bit? I think Miraidon is going to be an easy ban for the game. It is probably going to release overpowered. It feels very powerful on the public test server, and the public test server is a weird way to tell if something is powerful. So I think if something feels strong there, when it comes to the actual game and you're not playing on nonsense ping, I think it could be very, very good. There's always a possibility that it won't be, but I'm guessing this Pokemon has high ban priority moving into the draft mode of the game. Delphox, good, won't see a lot of bans. Really nice Pokemon for that reason. I think Delphox could provide a lot of value. In fact, I'm actually going to move this one down to our sneaky value tier. I was thinking of moving some Pokemon down later to our sneaky value tier. Maybe I'll just do that with a few right now. So Delphox, I think, has a sneaky high value because of its anti-healing. You see certain team comps on the enemy team, and you could sort of gutter pick or last pick this as your attacker for the team. And if their heals are big, you just really neutralize that. I think Delphox could have sneaky high value. Same thing with Slowbro, by the way. Now that I'm just bouncing back to our defenders, really good. And also, if you see the enemy team has a powerful speedster that they're trying to play, or something with a lot of dive that they're trying to play, you bring Slowbro into it and it shuts down the enemy team. I think it could have sneaky high value inside of drafts. Let's keep going with our attackers. Dragapult, great, gonna be banned a ton. It's possible that it evades some bans. Here's the thing. It's in a 2-ban system, I don't think you're seeing Dragapult banned. In a 4-ban system, it's either hanging out in our A tier or it's high B. So I do think this Pokemon could see some bans. I also think, well, gosh, it's close, isn't it? Man, it's close. Maybe I'm going to move this one to B. I just don't think teams are going to ban Dragapult now that I think about it. It's really good, but I don't think teams are going to ban it. Same thing with Venusaur. Really good. I don't think teams are going to ban Venusaur either. I'm just going to keep our colors together. So we've got our attackers here. Venusaur, great. Don't think teams are going to ban it. Sylveon, solid. Teams are not going to ban this Pokemon. Candle, solid. No one is going to ban this Pokemon, really. Mew, same thing. Good value. People just aren't going to use bans on something like this. Espeon is the same way. Glaceon, I think, could see a ban. It could see a ban. Everything in our B tier could see a ban. Glaceon is so easy to use that I think some teams could attempt to ban it. We're gonna have to see. I might leave it up here into our A tier. Let's see. Decidueye. Decidueye I'm putting in the sneaky high value tier. Decidueye could be so incredibly good because depending on the enemy team comp, the range that you get with Decidueye, and then also noticing that they don't have a lot of dive, like a lot of Pokemon that jump in at you, Decidueye is a crazy high value Pokemon inside of a draft scenario. So I think you're never really going to see it banned out, and it has a ton of value. Guardy, really never going to see it banned, solid value. Inteleon, however, I think could definitely get banned. Inteleon's kind of dummy good right now, especially in the hands of a really good player. It just sits into too many good team comps. It can do too much damage from afar. Its Unite move is broken. I definitely think you could see teams banning Inteleon for sure. Alolan Ninetales, I don't think you're going to see many bans on this at all. It's going to provide pretty good value as a lane attacker Pokemon. Very solid. Greninja and Cinderace, I think you're not going to see too many bans, but they, you know, as the auto attackers, I think they kind of have mid value inside the game. Like, they're not that great. They don't play too well into a lot of team comps. And when things get more serious with draft, just like you see in the competitive, you know, side of the game with the tournament scene and everything, you just don't see these Pokemon because they just don't do that well. Duraludon is kind of the same. In some ways, Duraludon could hang out in our sneaky high value tier, but let's be honest, I don't think there are going to be a lot of situations where you're getting a ton of value out of Dura, even though I love Dura. Pikachu. Pikachu might be sneaky high value tier. This is a weird one. It's either sneaky high value or it's B. So the thing about Pika is that Pikachu is like actually a lot better, I think, than people expect. And into the right team comps, like you shut down certain things super hard. In fact, I am going to put it in our sneaky high value tier. I think Pikachu is really solid value. Into the right comp, playing even EXP share, even without, playing Volt Tackle Pikachu, or even Thunder with Curse, into the right enemy team comp is extremely powerful. In other situations, it's a little underwhelming, but I think Pikachu is a sneaky attacker pick that could really disrupt some enemy teams for sure. Cram is gonna could be really good. It's also gonna be one of those like chaotic picks that you could throw into a team and you'll never ban it. I don't think it's sneaky high value, but I think Cram will be a really solid pick. Those are all of our attackers except for Mewtwo-Y. And you know what? While I'm here, I guess I'm going to talk about Mewtwo-Y because Mewtwo-Y and Mewtwo-X are without question our god tier bans. So we don't know the power of Miraidon, and honestly with Zacian, I'm not so sure Zacian's as good as it used to be. Those recent nerfs feel like they were pretty strong. It could be like a decent Pokemon, but here's the thing about the Mewtwo's. Even with their change to Eos Energy, which is coming from the PTS, where when they Mega, it's based on their Eos Energy gates. Even with that, I think these Pokemon are still incredibly good, quite overpowered, but here's the reason they're our god tier ban. Banning a single Mewtwo bans both Mewtwo's. Picking a single Mewtwo cancels out a Mewtwo on the other side. Mewtwo counts as one Pokemon inside of draft mode for this game. Mewtwo X or Y. If you pick X, the other team can't have Y. It's pretty huge. For that reason, I think it's one of the most impactful bans in the game. If you're the first pick, You so after draft, you get the first pick. You may not be the side that bans Mewtwo because by not banning it, if the other team doesn't, you get to first pick Mewtwo and the other team does not get a counter with a Mewtwo of their own. I think for that reason, they're probably the most impactful bans that you're going to see inside the game until people get really, really good at the game or the Pokemon get nerfed. So I think you're definitely going to see these Pokemon banned out a lot. And let's just go to our all-rounders now since we bounced from attacker to all-rounder using Mewtwo Y and then Mewtwo X. Let's see. Buzzwole banned like crazy. Incredible high value. It's probably a god tier ban in the same way. I might move more Pokemon into our god tier. And Buzzwole is nuts. Inside of with a game giving you more coordination, more options, Buzzwole is so good, but it's such a high priority ban target for sure. Blaziken, pretty good value, and very few bans, I think. Zacian, I don't even know where to put Zacian. I don't think it's that great right now, but I haven't seen it in a whole season. Seeing it right at the start of this season, it did not feel very good. Maybe they buff it or something like that. It feels weaker than all the other EX Pokemon right now. We'll see what they end up doing with Zacian. Maybe it would hang out right here in this tier, but I don't think anyone's going to ban it. And I just don't think it's that good right now, honestly. I think it's kind of a C tier choice, especially in draft. Like, I wouldn't be drafting it personally. I'm not excited about seeing it. Metagross, solid. You're not going to ban it. Really good Pokemon, could play in that top lane, I think. Some people might even play at center. Garchomp, another good one. If you're not able to get Buzzwole, if neither team gets it, the all-rounder category opens up, tremendously in that top path, and I think Garchomp gives a lot of value. Zarina, I think, is maybe a sneaky high-value Pokemon in the right hands. You have to be very good with Zarina, and you have to notice that the enemy team is squishy enough, and that their lane that you're playing into, probably the top lane, is not super like Buzzwole heavy or something like that. It's actually something sort of weak. If that's the case, I think Zarina gets so much value in a ban situation. Lucario, good. No one's going to ban it. So that's great. Lucario is a good counter pick right now to Buzzwole. It's not as good as Buzzwole, but it's a solid pick that you can play in the lane against it. Scizor. Scizor actually is a kind of a high value Pokemon only in the right situation, but this is actually a world where Scizor can do well. If you see the enemy team does not put you in a position like having a Clefable over there or something, like too many stuns, and they're a physical heavy team that you can brawl with, Scizor gets tons of value. Draft is in some ways a buff for Scizor in general. Also, it is a I wouldn't say it's a nerf for Scizor. It's just, it makes it so much more clear when you could actually play this Pokemon, which is rarely. It is rarely. But when you could actually get some really strong value out of Scizor. Same thing goes for Tyranitar. Looking at the enemy team, seeing how they're going to play into T-Tar, seeing if they really have a way to deal with this once it gets going, and seeing if they kind of have a way to shut it down super hard early are going to be all the decisions that go into whether or not you can play T-Tar. And based on like the healing your team has, the healing the enemy team has, like what all that looks like, T-Tar could be a really solid pick. Like Scizor, it's not going to get picked a lot. However, when it does, if it's picked correctly, it could have a lot of value. Dragonite, I think not many bans and really solid. Really, really solid. Water Shifu is bad. I just think it's not very good, guys. And I don't know why you'd pick it right now. Maybe it's going to get higher value in draft just because you'll be able to see some of the weird stuff the enemy team is doing maybe, but I just think Water Shifu, not great. However, Dark Bear, really high value. Dark Bear gets more value inside of draft than it does in any other form of play. Any type of coordination and recognizing whether or not your team has good secure, if the enemy team has good secure. If you see an enemy team that really wants to fight, right, but they don't have good secure moves, and then you're able to get something with some good rip, and then an Urshifu like Dark Bear, you can just take objectives in front of the enemy team, and its Unite move is a great way to cancel some of the enemies on the enemy. Just like easy, boom, you're gone, goodbye. I think Dark Bear gets really nice value inside of draft. Let's see, Gyarados, I don't know. in its current state, it won't see bans. And you know, honestly, in its current state, it's probably Decidueye Memorial tier. However, a few buffs here and there, and it can go way up. It can probably go all the way up to the B tier, right? Right now, you just wouldn't draft Magikarp. You just wouldn't. I mean, you're just putting yourself at such a disadvantage. And once you enter the draft mode of this game, you have to recognize that it starts at 1400 MMR. All the players have to be there. You're essentially going against players who at least somewhat know what's going on. That's the idea behind draft inside the game. I think in that sense, I mean, it's such a liability right now to pick this Pokemon. However, with buffs, that could definitely change. And I guarantee this Pokemon's getting buffs. Azu, fine. It's fine. It probably needs some buffs. No one's going to ban it. It's okay. Let's see. Machamp. It's all right. Machamp's all right. It's another one of those all-rounders that plays decently well and will rarely get banned, right? It's definitely not Buzzwole category, but it's pretty dang good. Char, yeah, without buffs, I think you're really rarely going to see Char get banned ever, and I think its value is not terrible, but pretty mid. I would say it's pretty mid. Aegislash, on the other hand, I think actually gets some sneaky value. Seeing the right enemy team comp, kind of like a Scissor, seeing the right enemy team comp that you can combo around and won't have to run into gravity and won't have to run into, you know, sure hit sort of crazy amounts of special attack damage, you could actually see some good situations to pick up Sword. I really do think so. Mimikyu, probably right here. Very solid, rarely banned. I think that's exactly where you're going to see Mimikyu. Let's move on to our supporters right now. Clefable is, I mean, yeah, it's going to be banned like crazy. It's way too good. It's like one of the best supporters in the game. Crazy, crazy good. Mime, rarely going to get banned and actually has pretty good value right now. You play it in the tank slot, really, in the bottom path, essentially, a lot more often than you see it kind of in a more supporter, what you would think of as a supporter role, which is kind of that top path, more of a healer type Pokemon. But I think Mime does better inside of draft mode. Also, it's rarely going to get banned. Blissey could get banned pretty easily. I could definitely see, like Clefable and Blissey, I could see both of them getting banned. With 4 bans, I think supporters are going to be an intense target. Eldegoss is close. It's close to being up in a high ban category, but I think most teams probably won't ban Eldy. That's just my guess. I mean, we don't know what 4 bans is going to look like. I just don't think they're going to ban Eldy. I really don't. But I could totally be wrong. LD is great. I just think Clefable and Blissey are going to get more priority for supporter bans. Comfey, on the other hand, sneaky high value. Super high value out of Comfey. Because you can see the enemy team comp and you can see your team comp and you can decide if you have a Pokemon that you can throw the collar on and really take over the game. Comfey gets crazy, crazy value out of this, but also you're going to see it less. So kind of win-lose. Like, I don't want to see it much at all, but fair enough. Sableye is weird. Even in this like scenario, I don't know that Sableye gets much more value. It's not terrible, but it's just weird. I would say it's probably closer to our C tier right here. It's not awful. It really isn't, but it's the only time you see it even get good value in the competitive scene is when someone is absolutely dummy good on a Pokemon like this. So I'm not so sure we're going to see a lot of Sableye played. One thing that could happen is you could see a lot of supports getting banned, and for that reason it does gain some value, but it's still not a healing support, so I don't think it gains that much value. Hoopa's a weird one. Hoopa and LD are both weird ones. In a way, Hoopa and LD kind of can go into our sneaky value tier. Because both of these Pokemon actually do pretty well, given that I think a lot of people are going to be focusing their bans on Blissey and Clefable. That's just what I'd guess, again. And if that is the case, I do think that Hoopa and LD could actually both move into the sneaky high value tier. But in general, I think you're not going to see them banned out a ton, and you're going to see them picked a decent amount. They feel like they are the ones you probably don't ban, but you get a lot of picks on. That being said, if we start seeing the meta shift to just all 4 picks being thrown at supporters, then all these supporters are like Blissey, Clefable, LD, and Hoopa are all in a ton of trouble. Wiggly actually is sneaky high value. It's sneaky high value and sneaky low value. Running into Umbreon, you can't play it. Running into Miraidon, since you can't put things to sleep, it might kind of be not so good. If you want to know more about that, check out my Miraidon vid I just put up a couple days ago about how its passive works. However, if you don't see things like that on the other side, Wiggly gets a ton of value. Wiggly's really good right now, but it gets countered pretty hard. So it's a high value Pokemon that you're not going to see a ton. And now we can move on to our speedsters right here, which is a pretty fun category. Okay. Leafeon has been seeing a ton of bans competitively. I don't know if that same competitive feel is going to move over to like just a ranked draft mode, but it absolutely could. And we could see a lot of bans on Leafeon. It also has tons of value because it's so good early. Meowscarada, I don't think teams are going to ban it, and I think it's pretty good. So yeah, B tier. Dodrio is borderline. It's weird. I think looking at all the bans on here, I don't think Dodrio falls into a situation where teams are going to ban it. I really don't. Mewtwo, Umbreon, Blastoise, Miraidon, Buzzwole, Inteleon, Glaceon, like all these Pokemon and especially these supports just have so much more priority for bans. I think you're going to be able to pick a lot of the speedsters here. Zoroark, sneaky high value tier, I think. Even higher value than Dodrio. You have to be a really good Zoroark player, and you have to see a team composition that you can actually play into. If you see that, I think Zoroark is crazy high value. Scyther is mid. It's weird. The only problem with Scyther, like, it's never going to get banned, which is cool, but it also just doesn't play that well into too many comps. There are a few comps that it will do really well into. A few. In general, I think it's not going to get picked that much. Gengar is, I think it's probably just a no overall. It doesn't do well in comp. It could have some sneaky value, but it's so rare. It's so rare. I think this does even worse with draft mode inside the game. You'll see a few situations where Gengar looks pretty good though. Absol, pretty good, rarely banned. Zeraora, I actually think decently well, almost never banned. I think this is a Pokemon people are sleeping on. Does that mean they're going to start picking it? I don't know, but it's rarely going to be banned, and it's not super enemy comp dependent. You can play it into a lot of teams. Talon is probably also hanging out right. I think all these speedsters do pretty well. One of the biggest benefits of these speedsters are they're all pretty good. You'll see the enemy team, so you can decide whether or not you want to play it. Like if they have Clefable and stuff like that, and you've got Zoroark or Dodrio, you just won't play it. You won't play those Pokemon because you're countered too hard. However, when you see that their comp looks decently reasonable, they've got some attackers that are pretty squishy, you can play pretty much any of these speedsters into that, and again, they're rarely going to get banned. And then finally we have Phalanx, but Phalanx isn't in the game yet, so this is just an early take on what draft probably will look like inside Unite. Of course, there will be balance changes. There will be meta shifts, not only based on balance, but based on how people are picking and what they're doing inside the game. Will the Mewtwo's come back and be crazy OP? We're gonna have to find out. Is Miraidon gonna be broken? Who knows? I know, it's probably gonna be broken. But in general, there's so much that we're gonna find out when draft actually makes its way to the game. So these are all just early thoughts. These are thoughts based on tournament. These are thoughts based on what you see in ranked right now. And these are me theorizing what will happen when we get 4 bans inside the game. I wanna hear from you. What do you think is going to go on when we get draft mode inside the game? Oh, and also, I should mention, they talked about this in their most recent post, like on the English Pokemon Unite Twitter, I want to say. There will be a survey coming out on March 9th or something like that, asking players about draft mode inside the game. I highly encourage you, if you like draft and you want to see it expanded and ranked, I absolutely do. I think you should fill this survey out, let them know that you like this and you want to see it like expanded. You want to see it take over the ranked mode of this game, basically. So I think the most reasonable place would be they're starting at 1400 Masters. If next season they make it Masters in general, cool. Or even all the way down to Ultra, I think could be really, really cool. And we start having the ranked mode of the game more closely mirror the competitive landscape, and then standards would actually kind of get more popular because people just go, I don't really want to deal with draft right now. I just want to play Meowscarada. I'm heading into standards. Let me know what you think in the comments. Again, thank you all. I love you. Pokemon Day tomorrow morning. I can't wait. I'll see y'all soon. We did it.